Hey, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday, otherwise known as
Hump day, yeah.
it's Hump Day. And this is Victory's virtual workshop, creating confidence and clarity for your financial life. I'm Patrick Huey, and today is Wednesday, May the 8th, 2024. And a few months ago, I was working with some longtime clients. We'll call them Bill and Jane. And I asked them about their charitable giving. I was pretty confident they'd been giving to their church for years, but I wanted to make sure they still were. This used to be a lot easier back in the days when you listed your charitable giving in your tax returns. But since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act back in 1617, we've had to ask the question, are you actively giving to charity? Because most people do not itemize their deductions. So the good news is they still were giving to their church a fairly significant amount. And Bill had recently turned 73 years old. So I asked if they knew about the provisions for a qualified charitable distribution. I got the glazed look in the eyes, and they said no, they had not. So I asked if they'd be interested in saving about $2,500 in federal income tax if I could show them this strategy. And to no one's shock or surprise, they were very interested in saving some money off of federal taxes. So let's take a look at what QCDs are, then I'll come back and finish this story with Bill and Jane. Qualified charitable distributions. Here's a brief overview. QCD was introduced as a provision in the Pension Protection Act of 2006. Remember that one? Probably not. Initially, it was set to expire in 2007, but it was extended several times and was finally made permanent by the Protecting Americans from Tax Hikes, PATH Act of 2015. I swear they just do this so that we have to go and get continuing education for all this stuff that they put in as a one-time and then end up keeping in there. But I digress. A qualified charitable distribution allows individuals age 70 and a half or older to donate up to $105,000 per year currently directly out of their IRA, and that's a key there, directly out of the individual retirement account to eligible charitable organizations without including the distribution in their taxable income. So you get to do a contribution, not put it in your income, as long as, number one, it comes directly from your IRA, and number two, you give it to an eligible charitable organization. Okay? So it's great for tax efficiency. QCDs offer a tax efficient strategy for retirees who are subject to required minimum distributions from their retirement accounts. Instead of taking the RMD as taxable income, individuals can fulfill their charitable intentions while reducing their taxable income by donating, here's that word again, directly from the IRA. QCDs facilitate charitable giving to the philanthropic organization by enabling retirees to support causes they care about without incurring additional tax burdens. Think of it this way. Instead of taking money out of your IRA, paying tax on it, and then giving it to a charity, you just cut out the middleman and the taxes. Tax advantages, okay? QCDs provide tax benefits by reducing the taxable income, like we just talked about, lowering overall tax liability for individuals subject to RMDs. Translation, QCD could reduce your adjusted gross income and thus lower your tax bracket and how much you pay in taxes. They also offer simplicity. It's a fairly straightforward method for fulfilling charitable intentions without the need to itemize your deductions. About 99% of taxpayers now don't itemize deductions. So if they're making charitable contributions, they're getting no tax benefit from it. But this makes it an attractive option for retirees who are seeking some simplicity in their financial and their tax planning. So some benefits, other benefits, you can avoid the potential 25% penalty that's imposed if you don't take your required minimum distribution. Again, this fulfills the RMD. So you won't get penalized for missing an RMD if you use the QCD. I know, it's a lot of acronyms. You don't have to itemize deductions on your tax return to deduct a qualified charitable distribution from your taxable income. Hallelujah. Here are a few cons. Donation has to go to a qualified charity. Qualified charity. Named a 501c3 by the Internal Revenue Service. Make sure that you are checking that. The donation must come directly from the IRA account. We just talked about that. Cannot withdraw the funds and then make the donation directly. That's a no-no. You're going to pay taxes on the distribution. The maximum annual QCD is now $105,000. And a QCD cannot be claimed as an itemized charitable deduction on your taxes. Not only shouldn't it, but it can't be, right? So you can't take the QCD and itemize it on your deductions. That's double dipping. Again, that's a no-no. So limitations. QCDs are subject to specific rules and limitations. Of course they are. It's the IRS. Why wouldn't there be rules and limitations? There are age requirements. You have to be 70 and a half or older. Now, no, right? You don't have to be 70 and a half to take a required minimum distribution anymore. RMDs start at age 73. Well, you still have the option to do qualified charitable distributions once you hit 70 and a half or older. And it's not the year you hit 70 and a half, it's actually 70.5 years. You have to wait for 6 months after your 70th birthday, and then you can do a qualified charitable distribution. There are annual contribution limits. Right now it's 105,000. They are scheduled to go up. And eligible recipient organizations are qualified charities, excluding donor advised funds and private foundations. So you can't double dip there either by taking a qualified charitable distribution, parking it into a donor advised fund and getting the tax benefits there. It's a one and done. It's got to go direct to the qualified charity. Some other cons of this is the documentation required. It's not as streamlined as it should be. It still requires some manual steps to get a check and then forward it on and report it all correctly on your taxes. So just beware. There are going to be a few steps, a few hoops you have to jump through. And you want to make sure that when you take this QCD in next year on your taxes, that you're letting your tax preparer know that that's what you did. Or you're making sure that in your tax preparation software, you know how to report this correctly. Otherwise, you're just going to end up paying taxes on something you don't need to. And that is not optimal. So in conclusion, qualified charitable distributions, they offer us a tax efficient and straightforward method to support charitable causes while potentially reducing a retiree's taxable income. Okay. However, individuals considering QCDs should carefully review the eligibility criteria, the limitations, and the potential impact on their overall financial situation. Obviously, if you need the required minimum distribution to live on, we probably shouldn't be giving it away. It needs to be part of an overall comprehensive financial plan for your retirement. Consulting with a financial advisor or a tax professional, or go ahead and just get both with someone like me, is recommended to determine if QCDs align with your philanthropic and financial goals. All right. Let's go back to Bill and Jane and see how their decision progressed with the qualified charitable distribution. Okay, Bill and Jane, do you have a traditional IRA, inherited Roth, SEP IRA, or simple IRA? The answer is yes. Bill has an IRA, and I want to say at the time it was about $350,000 or so. Maybe more, maybe less, which will affect the calculations later. But for argument's sake, we'll say $350,000. Bill, are you going to be at least 70 and a half at the time you plan to make a qualified charitable distribution? Well, yes, he is. We already said he was 73. And looking at his own required minimum distributions beginning, and that was why we started to look at a QCD to begin with. Okay, so is the IRA actively receiving any employer contributions, SIP or simple? It is not. Bill has been retired for quite some time and is more than happy at this point to be living off of those, off of his pension actually, and really not using the funds that come from his IRA. Okay, back to the flow chart. Is he married? Does he file a joint income tax return? He most certainly does, right? Married to Jane for quite a while. So we move on down the flow chart. The dollar amount of his total QCDs cannot exceed $210,000. This is a good point. You can actually double the minimum amount of a qualified charitable distribution for each taxpayer. So if you're filing jointly, you get 105 per taxpayer. You could do up to $210,000. Now, as we just said, Bill wants to contribute like he has been to his church, which was about $10,000 a year or so. So he's not really looking to do a huge contribution like this would provide him. So this can satisfy his required minimum distribution if he's subject to one. Okay, be mindful of first dollars out rules. So you want to make sure that you are not using an IRA to which you contributed post-tax money, or else that's going to come out first. And the cumulative amount of any deductible IRA contributions would be reduced if that were the case. Okay, that is not the case for them. It's all pre-tax money. So we're skipping down. Is the recipient a private foundation or a donor advised fund? Yeah, it's actually a church. They are a 501c3. And we know then that, or I'm sorry, excuse me. Is the recipient a private foundation or a donor advised fund? The answer is no. They are a qualified 501c3 and they are eligible to receive these QCD funds. So yeah, Bill's eligible. We can go ahead and use the qualified charitable distribution. In his case, his required minimum distribution was about $10,500. Okay, so $10,500 is what they decided to then send as the qualified charitable distribution to their church. Now, they were in the 22% bracket when this occurred. So their savings is just a little bit over $2,200 in federal taxes for doing that qualified charitable distribution. Listen, I've been talking to a lot of clients about this lately because it's an easy way to be very mindful of your tax situation as well as your charitable giving and give something while getting something. Giving to the charity of your choice, getting some tax breaks for that contribution. So remember, being on glide path for retirement and in retirement starts with a smart approach. Making sure your sources of income, your medical and healthcare planning, your advanced planning, risk management, and your tax efficient strategies like the qualified charitable distribution all work together. That's it for this week. Thanks for checking in. I will see you next week.